It sounds like something out of science fiction. We brought back the dire wolf. But this isn't a movie. This ain't no Jurassic Park BS. It's real. This happened in our current reality. Somewhere in the Canadian Rockies, inside a high-security facility surrounded by snow and silence, a pack of animals that hasn't existed for more than 10,000 years is alive again. It literally is the start of any catastrophe movie you might know about science going too far. And not only are they alive, they're thriving. The dire wolf, Canis dirus, is back. And now we're left with a whole new kind of question. Not how we did it, but why? And more importantly, what the hell do we do now? The world, 20,000 years ago. Around 20,000 years ago, Earth was a completely different planet. We were deep in the last glacial maximum, the peak of the most recent ice age. Massive ice sheets, some over 3 kilometers thick, stretched across much of the northern hemisphere. Nearly all of Canada and the northern third of what is now the United States lay buried under towering walls of ice. The glaciers were so massive, they locked up trillions of gallons of water, dropping global sea levels by over 120 meters. The continents themselves looked different. Coastlines were wider, and long submerged land bridges emerged from the ocean depths. One of them, Beringia, connected Siberia to Alaska, allowing humans and animals to migrate into the Americas for the first time. The climate was harsh, dry, cold, and unpredictable. Deserts expanded. Forests shrank. In many places, fierce winds ripped across open tundras and permafrost plains. And yet, despite the cold, life thrived in staggering variety. North America was a Pleistocene paradise, if you were strong enough to survive it. Herds of Columbian mammoths and mastodons roamed the open grasslands, browsing ancient flora. Giant ground sloths, some the size of modern elephants, lumbered through patchy forests. American lions, larger than today's African lions, hunted alongside packs of dire wolves and the iconic saber-toothed cat, Smilodon fatalis. There were bears taller than polar bears, beavers the size of golden retrievers, and birds of prey with wingspans wide enough to blot out the sun. Even horses and camels, both native to North America before going extinct here, galloped across icy plains. It was a world of giants, built for survival through cooperation, brute force, and adaptation. This was the stage the dire wolf stepped into, a land raw with opportunity and danger, a frozen kingdom teeming with predators, prey, and competition on a scale we can barely imagine today. And the dire wolf? It was right at the top of that food chain, until the ice melted, the giants fell, and silence followed. So, what was a dire wolf? Really? Let's clear something up right away. Dire wolves weren't just oversized German shepherds with better marketing. They were something else entirely. Imagine North America during the Pleistocene, around 20,000 years ago. It was cold, yes, but also alive in a way we can hardly imagine today. Towering mammoths lumbered across frozen plains. Ground sloths the size of minivans dragged their claws through brushland. Beavers were as big as bears. Saber-toothed cats, giant vultures, armored armadillos, they were all part of the background noise of this proto-America. And in the middle of that chaos, the dire wolf, these animals weren't just big. They were built. Heavier than modern gray wolves, weighing in at up to 75 kilos. That's around 165 pounds. They had broader chests, shorter legs, and thicker bones. They stood nearly a meter tall at the shoulder, making them stocky and muscular, less sprinter, more battering ram. Their skulls were bigger too, stronger. Their jaws could generate over 1,500 newtons of bite force. That's enough to shatter bone, which, funnily enough, is exactly what they were designed to do. They didn't nibble, they crushed. Today's gray wolves tend to have a bite force of about 1,200 newtons. Why such force? Well, Because when you're fighting for scraps with saber-toothed cats and short-faced bears the size of SUVs, being polite doesn't get you fed. Dire wolves were bone crushers, pack hunters, and pressure-cooked survivors in a hyper-competitive world. So it seems pretty logic that they weren't built for chasing rabbits. They thrived in a world dominated by giants, and their prey matched that scale. Massive, armored, powerful, and often dangerous. They didn't just hunt for meat. They hunted in a world of megafauna, where every meal could kill you. That's why dire wolves evolved into compact powerhouses, shorter legs for grappling, broader chests for strength, and jaws capable of cracking bone wide open. Their main targets were the Pleistocene heavyweights, massive herbivores that dominated Ice Age North America. One of their most common prey was the ancient bison, Bison antiquus, which was up to 25% larger than the modern bison. These animals weighed close to a ton and stood nearly 2 meters tall at the shoulder, with sharp, curved horns that could gore a predator clean through. Taking one down required numbers, strategy, and patience, traits dire wolves likely used as cooperative pack hunters, coordinating in silence, flanking from both sides, and targeting the young, old, or isolated. They also preyed on western camels, Camelops hesternus, tall, fast herbivores with long limbs and excellent vision, built for speed and endurance on open plains. These weren't the desert camels we know today, but muscular, cold-adapted browsers that could fight back with vicious kicks and a stampede's worth of momentum. Ambushing one at a river crossing or in deep snow may have been the only viable tactic. Another challenging meal, the Harlan's ground sloth, Paramylodon harlani, which weighed over 1,500 kilograms, about the size of a small pickup truck. Slow-moving, yes, but heavily muscled and protected by thick hides, with massive claws that could easily disembowel a predator. These sloths were probably only targeted under extreme conditions, or when sick or injured, and even then, the risk was high. Juvenile Columbian mammoths and mastodons were also on the menu, though rarely. Adult mammoths were well over 4 meters tall at the shoulder and weighed as much as 10 tons, protected by both sheer size and the formidable defense of their herd. But calves separated from the group? A rare but massive payoff for a daring pack. In those situations, dire wolves would likely rely on relentless harassment, chasing, nipping, exhausting the young elephantid until it collapsed under stress or injury. More regular targets included Pleistocene horses and peccaries, medium-sized ungulates that, while not as physically imposing, were agile and fast. Horses were especially challenging, directionally aware and prone to running long distances. But dire wolves, with their cooperative tactics and bone-crushing jaws, could finish a hunt fast once the animal was slowed or injured. Peccaries, on the other hand, were fierce and tusked, capable of inflicting serious wounds if cornered, but small enough that a coordinated wolf pack could overwhelm them with numbers. And when large prey was scarce, dire wolves likely scavenged from kills made by other predators, Smilodon, American lions, short-faced bears, or competed with them head-on, turning every meal into a fight for dominance. That's why their jaws were so overbuilt, not just to kill, but to win the rights to feed. Even their teeth tell a story, heavily worn, often broken, with deep signs of bone gnawing. They didn't just eat meat. They devoured entire carcasses, cracking ribs, splitting femurs, digging into marrow. They weren't picky. They weren't going after weaklings like wolves of today tend to do. They went after whatever they could bring down as a group and rip apart with raw, brute force. Predators made for a brutal ecosystem where every hunt could end in a feast or in nothingness. But then, everything changed. As the Ice Age ended, so did the megafauna. Climate shifted, ecosystems collapsed, and humans, armed with fire, tools, and persistence, swept across the land. Prey disappeared, competitors rose, and the dire wolf, like most creatures that are perfectly adapted to their environment, were now the perfect fit of a world that no longer existed. Thus, they died with it. Or so we thought. Rewriting Extinction. For years, scientists had been collecting dire wolf bones from tar pits and caves, scraping ancient DNA from fractured teeth and fossilized marrow. At first, it was just about learning who they were, like we usually do for all other extinct species and fossils we find on sites all across the globe. But then, something strange turned up. DNA discovery, and then its manipulation that enabled us to do things we did not think were possible, like prevent or cure disease, transfer blood, detect family ties more accurately than any family records. And the more recent years, CRISPR came in, making the possibility to revive extinct species more than a distant dream. In 2021, a groundbreaking genetic study found that dire wolves weren't actually wolves at all. Not really. They had split off from the ancestors of gray wolves 6 million years ago. That's not a cousin. That's another branch on the tree entirely. And that meant something huge. If you wanted to bring one back, you couldn't just clone a wolf and tweak a few genes. You had to rebuild it fully, because the differences between the two species would be way too important for the new creature to be called dire wolves. So that's exactly what they did. The Resurrection Project. Colossal has been working toward resurrecting the mammoth, dodo, and Tasmanian tiger since 2021, but the company had not previously publicized its work on dire wolves. This massive milestone is the first of many coming examples demonstrating that our end-to-end de-extinction technology stack works, said Ben Lamb, Colossal's co-founder and CEO, in a news release. Our team took DNA from a 13,000-year-old tooth and a 72,000-year-old skull and made healthy dire wolf puppies. The 3 dire wolves are living on a 2,000-acre site at an undisclosed location, enclosed by 10-foot-tall, 3-meter-tall, zoo-grade fencing, where they are monitored by security personnel, drones, and live camera feeds. Colossal said the facility had been certified by the American Humane Society and registered with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The program was called Fenrir, named after the monstrous wolf of Norse mythology. A lovely name, ain't it? It started in secret, backed by biotech companies, conservationists, and just enough money to make the impossible sound like a good investment. They began with the African wild dog, an animal that shared more in common with the dire wolf than any modern wolf did. Then came CRISPR, the genetic scalpel. Piece by piece, scientists edited its genome, stitching in fragments of recovered dire wolf DNA. This wasn't cloning, it was reconstruction. They reverse-engineered the dire wolf starting from its closest relative to this day. And when the gene sequence was ready, it was implanted into lab-grown surrogate mothers, engineered to carry the weight of a 70-kilo predator. And in March 2025, it happened. 3 pups were born, alive and healthy, and unmistakably, not normal. The world loses its mind. News broke within hours. Social media lit up with blurry photos and shaky videos. Wide-pawed puppies with thick coats and cold yellow eyes. The Ice Age is back, headlines screamed. For a moment, it felt like a scientific miracle. Homo sapiens successfully canceled extinction, and not on some very close species to us, but to something far more distant, making the return of anything else an actual possibility. But then came the harder questions. What are these animals, really? Are they wild? Are they synthetic? Are they some strange in-between? Can we actually call them dire wolves? And now that we've brought them back, what are we supposed to do with them? The playing God problem. It's the oldest debate in science. Just because you can do something, should you? Critics say this is Frankenstein-level hubris, that these animals were gone for a reason. Their base ecosystem was gone, their prey, all extinct. Even if early humans had a part in it, it's far from proven, and even if they did, it's probably nowhere near the role we have in most extinctions of today. Then bringing them back now could unravel ecosystems or worse, open the door to a world where nature is something we manufacture, but defenders have a different take. We caused most of these extinctions, directly or indirectly. Maybe we owe it to the planet to reverse some of the damage. And with biodiversity and freefall, maybe resurrecting species isn't science fiction anymore. Maybe it's survival. Maybe this can be our contribution to nature and help reverse climate change? Dire wolves in the wild. Sort of. Here's the part that might sound craziest. The goal was never to keep these creatures behind glass. This seems to be absolute madness, as even the Jurassic Park dinos were never meant to reach mainland, and were supposed to be kept in cages, contained. But the Fenrir team had other plans from the beginning, to release the dire wolves into a fenced, semi-wild preserve in Alberta. A closed ecosystem, full of elk and deer, where the wolves could be studied as they learned to live and hunt on their own. The logic? Canada's elk population has been growing out of control without natural predators. Forests are thinning. Rivers are eroding. Sound familiar? It's what's happening in Yellowstone, but colder. And this time, instead of reintroducing gray wolves, we're introducing something older, more primal. But there's a risk, and a big one at that. These animals didn't evolve with modern ecosystems. They were sculpted by Ice Age chaos. They're way tougher than anything that any wolf and elk might have encountered. This thing might even be dangerous to bears and grizzly, given its specs and pack behavior. We're putting ghosts into a world that forgot them, and hoping they remember how to haunt. What are they like? So far, early reports are intense. The wolves are quiet around humans, observant, watchful, not aggressive yet. Modern wolves learned to fear humans from ancestral times onward. This doesn't seem to be their case, which actually increases the risk of encounter, or worse. And when it comes to hunting? Well, the learning curve was promptly climbed. They're terrifyingly efficient. They don't chase like modern wolves. They ambush. They attack without warning. They kill fast, then disappear. And how do they communicate? Almost silent. Deep, low rumbles. Subtle body language. Very little howling. Like they know that loud animals don't last long in predator country. They're not wolves. They're not dogs. They're something new. Or rather, something very old. The price of resurrection. Let's not sugarcoat it. Bringing these animals back cost millions in research and resources. But it also cost something way harder to measure. These wolves have no family, no pack culture, no mother to teach them the rules of the wild. They're the first of their kind in 10,000 years. And unless we keep making more, they're also the last. For them to survive any genetic bottleneck and avoid ending up like Wrangel Island's mammoths, we have to make more. Or should we? What are these individuals exactly? A species, a project, a product? No one really knows, and the boundary doesn't seem to be that clear. The wolves are out. As of April 2025, 5 dire wolves roam the Alberta Reserve. They've made their first kill. They've established a hierarchy. And last week, they tore through a double-reinforced fence to reach a herd of deer. No humans were hurt, but the message was loud and clear. These aren't displays. These are predators, real ones. And now that we've released them into the wild, they're letting us know that there's no taking them back into custody. So, what now? But what do we do with this now? Bringing back the dire wolf won't fix the climate. It won't regrow lost forests or undo the damage we've done. But maybe it forces us to ask a better question. What kind of future are we building? One where wildness is something we edit, tame, market, or one where we make space for the unknown again? Because the dire wolves are here now. Alive. Watching. Waiting. And whether we're ready or not, we've opened the door. Is this the end, or just the beginning? We brought back a predator from the Ice Age, not to fix the world, not to dominate it, just because we could do it. Or maybe just to remind ourselves of the taste of fear, that nature doesn't forget, that even after 10,000 years, a heartbeat can return. Stronger, stranger, hungrier than we remembered. The dire wolf is no longer a fossil. It's a question, a warning, and maybe, just maybe, a second chance. Thanks for walking into the past with me. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. This greatly helps and encourages us to post more videos. Also, feel free to like it. Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the matter. We'll try and respond to everyone. Till next time, keep listening to the echoes